What's up, everybody? All right, so I promised you guys that we were going to dive deeper into Nevada, and that is exactly what we are going to do. So, Nevada, or Nevada, as Nevadans prefer to be identified by, um, this poor state has literally had so many issues with regards to the recent 2020 election. And again, I am not decreeing that there was indeed voter fraud in this particular state. However, I think it is only fair to address some of the issues that people are bringing forward. That for some reason, the governor of Nevada keeps dismissing. Okay, I think Nevada, out of almost all the other states, has probably have had the most issues, which is incredulous that this particular state legislators are dumping these cases. Okay, they're just completely rejecting these cases, and I just think that that's absolutely it's poor judgment, and it shows a lack of regard for the people of Nevada, because the people of Nevada, first of all, they're outraged that their entire state was forced to vote by mail up until the actual day of election. So in Nevada this year, if you wanted to vote in the 2020 election, you had to vote by mail. You had to put your vote in a mail-in ballot and drop it off at an official drop-off box. You could not you could not vote in person up until the actual day of election. So that really bothered a lot of people. They felt like they had the opportunity to go to department stores. They had the opportunity to meet with friends and family, even despite the whole situation that we're going through right now. It didn't stop life as they knew it, as it could have, and they could pretty much do most things. However, they could not vote in person until November the 3rd. So obviously, Nevada had a lot of ballots to go through, and Nevada was also unique in that people were saying that there are ballots, not applications for ballots, but actual ballots all over the place, okay? This mail carrier who was speaking with an undercover official from Project Veritas spoke about this. So James O'Keefe's people were out and about, and they ran into a mail carrier in Nevada who was just going about his route, and they're asking him about just how often is it that you get as you come across a ballot, a mailable ballot, a mail-in ballot. And he says, oh, all the time. They're all over the place. And it was just strange because you're supposed to apply for these. And I guess with Nevada mailing in their entire election, people were just being offered these, but ideally you should apply for these, okay? So the ballots themselves, they're legal ballots. They have the people that are running written on the ballots, okay? And they don't require any verification from you on the ballot itself. It's the envelope that verifies that it is indeed yours. So once it's out of the envelope, it's almost impossible to know who processed that vote, who it belonged to. But it looks like every other ballot. So when it's in a pile of a bunch of other ballots, it screams legitimate. However, if we don't know how to verify how a particular ballot came in, we have a huge problem. So Project Veritas really blew this out of the water when they talked to this poor mail carrier, who he didn't do anything wrong. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here with you guys. He didn't do anything wrong. He's saying what is just blatantly obvious in the state of Nevada, is that this poor state has ballots absolutely everywhere. And any average Joe can pick up a ballot and mail it in on someone else's behalf course, that would be fraudulent, but it could happen. And if you can't backtrack to the person, if you're not going to dust it for fingerprints, if you cannot backtrack who filled out that ballot, you will have no idea who filled out that ballot. Okay. So case in point, Miss Jill Stroke. She is a member, a resident of Nevada, who basically told the officials that were proctoring the election there that someone already voted on her behalf. Okay. It went all the way to the Clark County official, Mr. Joe Gloria, and he dealt with her directly. That's what he says. He dealt with her directly regarding this issue, and they actually found her ballot. They were able to pull up the envelope, and apparently it had her signature on it. Do not ask me how. Okay, this poor lady's already legally blind, so maybe she can't even see for herself what the signature actually looked like. All right, but they came to an agreement. Her and Mr. Gloria came to an agreement that this indeed was her signature, and they just left it at that. Okay, I personally, if I was him, I would have provided her a provisional ballot. I would have voided the original and said, here, go ahead and fill this one out while I'm standing right here with you, and then we'll count this as your legal vote. But they did not do that. They basically left things as they were, but she really dug, before she had the opportunity to speak with him, she really tried to figure out what in the world had happened. She reached out to an attorney, and eventually things kind of gradually crept up the ladder of who would be responsible for this situation. And she's not alone. Other people have come forward saying that others have voted on their behalf, okay? And or were very upset about it. She also said that someone voted on behalf of her roommate. So that screams to me a classic someone confiscated the ballots in her mailbox, the one that was for her and her roommate. They filled it out and it was dropped off. It was presumed as credible by the poll officials. They must not have verified signatures appropriately, and her ballot was processed as having been voted for her and for her roommate. Okay. Speaking of signatures, okay, this is something that I really want other people to give some attention to. Now, Nevada, like I said, it was really, really weird. And this was something that I think I haven't heard virtually anybody talking about this. I've seen it a couple times on Twitter, but that's pretty much it. However, the Trump campaign was already all over this, and they're filing a lawsuit based on the credibility of the machines to verify signatures, okay? So the lawsuit alleged that the signature verification system, which is called Agilis, was not being used as intended. According to the lawsuit, the DMV signatures the county is using to match ballots to are below the 200 dot per inch DPI requirements, meaning they'll use signatures for people who have already properly registered to vote and compare them to the signatures on the ballots received to make sure that the ballot that they are receiving has a signature that matches the signature that was used when the person originally registered to vote. Okay, the signatures have to match. Now, you and I both know how difficult it is already for signatures to just be in front of us, people that have pretty good eyes to verify if something looks like something else, and they could still be difficult to compare. So imagine if a machine is doing it, okay? And then imagine if the machine is not being used at the capacity of accuracy that it is capable of, all right? I heard on I think it was Next News, they were covering this and they were saying that Mr. Gloria had proctored the machines to have an accuracy of 40% in comparing signatures to one another because this sped up the process to count the votes. No. Okay. Defendant Gloria is using the alleged signature verification software, this particular lawsuit reads, in a manner which is contrary to the manufacturer's prescriptions. The lawsuit says specifically the manufacturer requires that signatures be scanned with a resolution of at least 200 DPI. Nevertheless, Mr. Gloria has consistently used signatures files from the DMV, which are all scanned at less than 200 DPI, resulting in the alleged machine being being unable to perform its required function, i.e. accurately verify signatures. Its degree of accuracy was lessened below 50%. And this is not attributable to the allegations of fraud. Are you serious? Okay, when people coming up there are saying that votes have already been cast on their behalf, this is crazy, okay? So that's just two of the issues with, no, that's just three of the issues with Nevada, right? So there's rampant ballots. There are people saying that people have voted on people's behalf. And then there's this whole signature issue. I heard it was 600,000 signatures that were just illegitimately processed in these dumbed down machines.
What's wrong?
I don't know. It's really weird. Another problem that Nevada had was dead people voting. Now, we've heard about this in Pennsylvania. It's 20,000 people supposedly in Pennsylvania voted that don't live anymore, okay? So Nevada bought in that as well, okay? And there's just also been these not allegations. This is probably more fact than anything. There's been this story about a Harris Biden bus outside of the polling offices in Nevada. Okay, they had to keep telling the bus leaders to stay at least 100 feet away from where people were casting their ballot because it's illegal to have campaigners so close to where people are dropping off their ballots because you're influencing elections, okay? These people were offering food. They were doing dances. They were also supposedly filling out ballots. That's how the story goes. This is just what I've heard. And actually, I don't think I'm too far off. Fox just talked about it this evening, that there were people who were filling in ballots at the Biden-Harris bus, okay? In the midst of hot dogs and hamburgers and festivities 100 feet somewhat away from polling facilities, okay? This right here is a description of a plethora of issues that the Trump Foundation has had, has discovered with regards to Nevada's situations, particularly the ones I'm mentioning and probably more. And these are not just, you know, things that are hearsay. These are offered on sworn affidavits. People are coming forward. They are called whistleblowers. Their identity is being protected because obviously people might come after them. But these are evidence based claims because individuals are coming forward and they're willing to back up their claim on the basis that if they are found to be false, they'll have to pay for that. So that's pretty substantial, and that needs to be considered, especially by the mainstream media. But as we all know, they are not talking about this, and people like the governor of Nevada are continuously dismissing these claims, which I think is completely ridiculous. So I thought this was interesting. The Attorney General, Sean Reyes, testifies that there are problems with Nevada voting. And it seems like he's talking about this from like a long-term view of how Nevada voting has gone on, not just from the 2020 election. But the Attorney General, now he's the Attorney General in Utah. The Attorney General in Nevada responded to him claiming that there are issues with Nevada voting by saying that Utah's Sean Reyes allegations are unfounded, and quite frankly, the tweet read that he needs to mind his own business. I thought that was pretty bold, you know? It's weird how when you're bringing up allegations of quote unquote fraud, and the other side not only doesn't want to listen to you, but then they insult you after that, right? So first they say you have no evidence, and then they say you're whining. You don't want to dismiss the results of the you don't want to accept the results of the election, or they'll say you're a conspiracy theorist, or they'll say you are trying to distract the people from XYZ. It's never just, we don't want to accept these claims, we don't find a lot of credibility with them, but they always kind of slap you after they tell you what they think about your claim. And in this case, it was the same thing. He's like, I don't see any evidence of voting irregularities, and someone needs to tell him to mind his own business. I mean, it just, that extra angst, it kind of pulls you back into wondering if there is indeed something that they're trying to hide from you because of the pushback that you always get when you just suggest the possibility that there could have been voter fraud. I mean, quite frankly, they could have suggested that there might have been voter fraud on our end. I don't see anyone coming forward saying that about the Republican Party, but they could. I don't think they would get the kind of response from us that we're getting from them. But anyways, Nevada has had a history, okay, a history of illegal people voting in their election, okay? So if anybody says that's not true, okay, look. So I pulled up some articles and they are backdated to 2017, 2018. This one reads, Nevada Secretary of State alleges voter fraud and blames the DMV. How convenient. So Las Vegas says Nevada Secretary of State has launched a voter fraud investigation. Namely, this was back in 2017, guys, okay? Claiming that the Department of Motor Vehicles may have inadvertently added a number of people to the voting rolls who were not citizens in the last presidential election. Okay, Nevada Secretary of State, Barbara, how do you say that? Sekavesk made an announcement in a letter Friday evening to the state DMV director, Terry Albertson, about this claim. So basically what they're saying is that the issue with fraud in terms of credibility of the voter, like his identification, wasn't something that should have fell on the responsibility of the election official or the election watcher, okay? It should have fell on the DMV for them not properly processing an individual for identification. And what the DMV says is that when you come up to try to apply for a driver's license or a state ID card, you were also asked to register to vote. And that registration immediately goes to their county clerk's office as a registrant for to be a voter in the state of Nevada. And what doesn't happen is the validity of the ID with the person's approval to be a registered voter in the state. And an illegal immigrant can get proof of ID in the state of Nevada and a social security card and still not be a citizen. But that's all you need to verify that you qualify to vote in the state of Nevada. So they're recognizing these flaws in their voter registration protocol, but it doesn't really sound like they came to a conclusion of how to fix that. And then what I later found out was that the situation got worse in 2020. So now in 2020, okay, all you have to do to vote in Nevada is not only sign up and fill out a voter registration application when you're applying for your ID, but look at this. A poll worker, excuse me, with the Clark County Elections Department, Nevada, is also blowing the whistle in a signed affidavit making appalling allegations of electoral fraud that they claim has occurred in the key battleground state. We were told by her team leader and 2 other assistants to advise people who wanted to register to vote and did not have proper Nevada ID or driver's license that they could go out in the parking lot and make an appointment with the DMV to get Nevada ID driver's license. and then bring in proof of their appointment confirmation, either a paper copy or short on the phone to us, and then they could be registered, the whistleblower said in their disposition. No, guys. So this is literally saying that if you walked up into a line to go and vote in Nevada, just you, okay, and they said, oh, well, you don't have a Nevada ID, just you, whoever you are, okay, go across the street and make an appointment to get an ID with Nevada at some point in time in the near future, okay? And they're gonna give you a piece of paper that says you have an appointment to get your ID. Now you're eligible to vote. Are you serious? Okay, it says here, they were permitted to vote with a provisional ballot, even though their appointments were not until January of 2021. We were told this was being allowed all over the valley at all polling places. If this is true, that's insane. Okay, so anyone could have come from anywhere and just had absolutely no additional identification with them because they weren't there to get their driver's license. They don't have their birth certificate with them or their social security card. They came to vote. And then they were told, well, you don't have the driver's license that you need in order to vote. You need to go and apply for one. So when they go apply for one, what are they having to show to prove that they are who they are? I have no idea. All I know is that after they get some kind of an appointment, after they're provided the opportunity to get an appointment, then that's enough, because all they have to do then is print out proof that they have an appointment to eventually get an ID card with Nevada state. Now they can vote. So this whole situation of not having enough documentation to be able to vote in Nevada, it didn't improve at all. It got worse, okay? I just don't understand, and I don't even hear people talking about this. Like, I literally don't hear people talking about this. I don't understand. I really, really don't understand. This was an affidavit list of all the things that the Trump campaign is bringing forward to Nevada officials, and heaven help us if these are not looked into more closely. I mean, obviously, they couldn't get it together in 2016. They're having problems again. I mean, when does this stop? Actually, Trump lost Nevada in 2016. And he said the same thing. He said it's voter fraud. These people are, they're taking the state using these tactics that should not be allowed. And everybody knows how close Nevada is to the Mexican border. There are a lot of illegal people in Nevada. It's unfortunate. But if your screenings to get registered voters are not scrutinizing them based on citizenship, of course, you probably have all kind of people voting in Nevada elections. And no, those are not credible votes. They're just not. They're not credible votes. This was back in 2016. Massive voter fraud discovered in Nevada may have cost Trump the state. I believe it. I completely believe it. 9,200 fraudulent votes were revealed in just one small assembly district. This was just 4 years ago. Trump lost by only 27,000 votes in the state of Nevada. Now, how sad is that? That's virtually half, almost half, maybe a third. A third of 27,000 votes. A third of them were fraudulent, according to this article. And this was only in a small district of Nevada, okay? Liberals in the media bombarded Trump after he suggested there were millions of illegal votes cast nationwide. It appears Trump knows what he's talking about. And it appears he told the future, because here we are again going through the same exact thing with the same exact state, okay? Nothing changed. These people did not clean up their act. They're doing the same shenanigans all over again. And I'm not saying they're doing it. I'm just saying no bars were put in place to keep it from happening again, because it happened again. Okay? Alrighty. I think this was the last thing I had for you guys this evening. And again, it's nothing crazy. I'm not talking about computer programs that are switching votes or anything like that. I'm just talking about basic standards that are being ignored, just like in Pennsylvania, just standards that protect the integrity of votes, utterly ignored, and then dismissed when people come and say on sworn affidavits that these issues are taking place, utterly dismissed by the courts, by the governor. That's a shame. I literally just showed how history repeated itself here in Nevada, and the judges don't want to look at this in more detail. How should that make the people of Nevada feel? If it were me, I wouldn't vote again in Nevada, okay? Witnesses say that a Biden-Harris bus unloaded ballots at Nevada Counting Center. This is great. Okay, they just unloaded ballots. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but this is the Washington Times. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't just like some kindergarten newspaper, all right? A witness claims to have seen a Biden-Harris van bringing ballots to the counting center in Nevada, according to the Trump campaign. This is worse than what even Laura was talking about, Laura Ingraham on Fox News. It's not just 1 or 2 ballots here, okay? They're saying that the bus brought ballots along with food and music. The witnesses said that he went for a walk on his lunch break around the counting center and spotted a Biden-Harris van unloading boxes of ballots. I have not heard about this. Oh my goodness. I don't have the article. I didn't even realize it was this bad. Okay, said conservative activist Matt Schaub, which people already have issues with. I do not care, okay? At least he's talking about these issues. At a press conference organized by the Trump campaign in Las Vegas, these people who were involved in this activity then decided to create a human shield around whatever it was that they were doing in the van, said Mr. Schaub, who is the chairman of the American Conservative Union. Yeah. The ballots were filled out and the envelopes were resealed. That's called fraud. That is called fraud. If this is what happened, that's fraud. Okay. It is the latest in a flood of allegations of vote tampering and fraud at the polls that the Trump campaign has pushed forward to contest election results. Project Democrat Joseph R. So let me read that again. It is the latest in a flood of allegations of vote tampering and fraud at the polls that the Trump campaign has pushed forward to contest election results, projected by the Democrat president, quote unquote, somewhat, not really, ever will be elect Joe Biden. Okay, so that's not basically 2 people filling out 2 ballots, which I was told about on other articles, which Laura Ingraham covered on Fox this evening. This is basically the problem that they had in Michigan, where people are saying that boxes of ballots were brought in, okay? And then what? What do you do with boxes of ballots when they're brought in, especially on a Biden-Harris bus? I don't know. Okay, he said another witness said he flagged thousands of votes to his supervisor for issues, but was instructed to process them anyway. I think this was attributed to the signature issue. I want to say it was Michigan, but they were noticing that a lot of these ballots, they didn't have signatures that matched any signatures in the roster or their previous voter registration rolls. And they were just told to feed them through anyways. No. Okay, we now have thousands of examples of voter irregularity, says Mr. Schaub. So when you start hearing the same story again and again and again from different people, this was someone who said that he saw it on his lunch break while he was taking a walk. Another one said the same thing. She said she saw people filling out ballots on the side of the bus, like 1 or 2. But it was, again, that Biden-Harris bus. And this was a poll worker, like a poll watcher volunteer. So she saw it over a course of days. And this was person here who was just there, I guess, who worked nearby and was on his lunch break, and he saw this. People are coming forward. They are putting their testimonies on sworn affidavits to be represented in court regarding this issue. For anyone to say that these allegations are negligible, you are basically telling the people of the corresponding state that it's possible that fraud might take place in an election, and if it impacts the numbers, so be it. That's basically what they're saying. So I think that's horrible, and it's definitely something that needs to be looked into deeply, because just like it showed in 2016, Trump lost Nevada in 2016, over 27,000 votes. And in their review, they found at least 9,000 that were considered fraudulent, according to that article. Okay, that's a third of votes that he could have collected, and who knows how many more. He might have won the state if the state was more vigilant in protecting the vote from fraudulent ballots that were cast. That's negligence on the state. So that's all I have right now for you guys. We're going to be covering the other states later. But I hope this was something that provided some sort of clout, some sort of useful content with regard to everything going on right now. So yeah, on to the other states. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching The Elephant in the Room.